Hey, Tim. Same to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Peggy.
Did everyone have a good holiday?
Yes. What, there was a holiday? Did I miss something?
Do in modified fashion.
Yes.
Are you home, Brian?
Not yet.
Okay.
Couple days.
Mm.
Yeah, I have a different backdrop than I normally do.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the wood stove is right behind me, so
Oh,
I'm staying
yeah.
nice. I'm staying nice and toasty.
Oh, good.
So
I turn on my gas wood fireplace.
we are at the 5 o'clock hour. We're waiting to gain our quorum, which is assembling quickly. Mark has a new backdrop. I have to say I'm slightly disappointed.
Oh,
It's pretty, but it's not the same beautiful street of trees.
oh, there you go.
Ah, perfect. You're on mute. If you said something wise, we missed it.
Ah, no, well, the wise thing would be for Zoom to let you pick your background before you start.
Very true.
I was just taking off my mask.
Revealing who you are.
Yes.
We've got Paul, also with a different backdrop. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's his office.
No, this is just my house.
Okay.
Hey, gang.
Hey.
Hey Peggy, that first report with PEC with the Piedmont Environmental Council, I think they got that done. I got the first draft of it today. So thanks for putting that
Great.
together.
What report?
We ended up using iTree tools to do a canopy study for 29 North.
Oh,
And got that rolled out over the holidays.
for PEC.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing they're doing a thing with a trailer park where they're probably gonna displace
right.
4 people, I think. I think that's the plan.
God, yeah. Hey, that's one thing to put on our list
Hey, so,
of things we've accomplished. That's great, Hanson.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for the introduction. That was really, really cool.
Yeah.
Learned a lot. Yeah, no, we learned a lot. And the landscape tools were really cool. And we found some limitations there, which was cool because it's nice to know kind of where you bump up against the wall with the data. So that was really helpful. And yeah, and I think catching up with Dr. Eric Wiseman in the next week or two, we're going to keep looking at. We're going to start looking at where the data science lands, like what we can get for free and what we're going to have to put the effort in on.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're actually kind of getting to where we can start talking about like actually buying data, which is a really cool place to be. Like to say, well, we might be able to get answers if we had data, is not where we've been in the past. You know, in the past we just didn't know what we didn't know, and now we're pretty clear on what we don't know. It's great. Anyway, that's the news from Wobegod.
We are at quorum. We have the only other person who I expect to join us is sorry. It's a terrible way to start the new year when you draw a blank on who. Jody, of course, Jody. So we'll go ahead. I'll call the January meeting of the Tree Commission to order. We've individually wished each other a happy new year, but I'd like to wish you all a happy new year and thank you for joining us on what I think for most people is probably their first or maybe second or third official duty of the year. So when Peggy and I were planning the agenda, I said, wasn't it just January? Weren't we just going through these agenda items? It seems like the whole year flew by. It crawled at times, but it flew by. There we go. We got Jody. So we'll look at the December minutes first. And then as you can see from the agenda that really we have a series of traditional first meeting of the year items to click through. Most of them are planning and organization. And then we'll look at the report and CIP. I always say this, I'm not sure if we'll go till 7, but then we usually find a lot of great things to talk about when we stay till 7. But tonight will be a sort of another planning meeting. For those of you who are new to the commission or recently new to the commission, we won't have the same lots of meaty topics to talk about, but it's always a good thing to get together as a group and sort of look ahead to the year and decide whether our goals, objectives are what we want them to be. So that really is a theme for this evening's meeting. Before we get into that, we have received from Mike the December minutes. You've all had a chance to review those. Are there any corrections, clarifications, edits, anything in those minutes that you would like to see changed in any way? I presume you've all had a chance to review them. Our
So I
minutes
move they be accepted.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the December minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Can't
Okay.
raise my hand with this thing.
Lost in
You can hit the
Napoleon.
trees, Mark.
I know. My hand could be here, or it could be, it can't be.
So our first order of business, again, these items will take up our calendar items, and our first order of business, this is what prompted my comment to Peggy when we were reflecting. Weren't we just electing a chair and a vice chair? It seems like just weeks ago, but we're going to phone calls and they're coming through right now. So for the new members, we do this each year. And one of these years we'll start a new tradition and we'll have like annual terms. Hopefully, maybe we'll start that this year, but we go through the annual terms by our bylaws for the chair and the vice chair. And I will open the floor at this point for nominations. I think, traditionally do them first for the chair and then for vice chair since they're independent offices. So I will open the floor for nominations for Chair of Tree Commission.
I'll nominate Brian.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Great job, Brian.
The floor will remain open for another 15 minutes to accept nominations, further nominations for chair. I hear no other nominations. All
Not
right,
going
well,
away. Not
all
going
right.
away, Brian.
Well, I could suddenly have a power outage, and what would we do? All right, well, I will accept and I'll stand for election. If there are no further nominations, then we have to have a vote. We've had a first and a second. So calling the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All right.
Those opposed? Okay, then I guess I will be chair for the next year.
Yeah, good job, Brian.
My first comment is to say that I hope things go as well and easily and quickly in Washington tomorrow as they just did right now. Fortunately, we don't have an electoral college. We could add one to the bylaws. We have that option this year. So now we move on to vice chair, and I will open the floor for nominations for vice chair. I nominate Peggy Van Yerries.
Second.
We have one nomination for Peggy Van Yerries as vice chair of the tree commission. The floor remains open for further nominations. Are there any further nominations? I see none, I hear none. So I'll close the nominations and move to a vote. We have a first and a second, so the motion is before us. All those in favor of the motion for Peggy Van Yerries to serve as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? The ayes have it. I will just say that when we were talking about this, Peggy and I were talking, planning the meeting. My plan was, Peggy was, I think, cool to this idea. My plan was to nominate her to serve as chair this coming year. But truly, and I want to say this because I said this to her on a number of occasions, this has really been more of a co-chair. Peggy works tirelessly, and as you know, she's an incredible, tenacious advocate. So it's really, you get two for the price of one because she does as much work as the chair does. So there was no sense really in, except for the honorary title, which she'll get someday because I'm leaving the commission before she does. This really is a team, and I wanted to say publicly how much I appreciate Peggy's hard work. So,
Thank you.
and I think we all acknowledge that. So. Okay, so now having done that, well, a bit of business, you all in your packet received what's sort of like an organization sheet. I can't remember what we title it. 2021 organization. So we did this last year. This has been each year, at least since I've been on the commission, sort of taking a look at the structure, our committees, membership, and goals and objectives. And each year we sort of tweak it and refine it. Last year, I think the only thing that we really did was to change the names of committees to sort of better reflect. We were also in the process of creating an education committee, a committee that was focused as much on education as anything else. So we took the opportunity to revisit all of the committees and then went through sort of what we thought were primary objectives, the main goals and the primary objectives for the year. And then, of course, the world changed about 6 weeks later. So not that I think we had to revisit this last year, but I think the thinking was that, we were still sort of in the first couple of months in a planning stage. What I did was I essentially just took the document that we developed last year and retitled it draft. And of course, after we went through this, in the middle of the year, we were fortunate to add new commission members. So then we went back and filled in the membership. Before we look at the committees, and I should say, and then we asked the committees to sort of go off take general goals and develop objectives, and preferably several things. And I've said this before, and for the benefit of new members and all of us, I'll say it again. One of the things I found serving on this commission is that there's no shortage of things that we can dive into. And sometimes there's just so much that it's good to say, all right, these are the goals for the commission, for our committees. What are going to be our specific objectives this year? So we can do that tonight as a group and just reflect on this list and have a conversation about what we've developed here over the past year. And then the committees can go off and take that and come back to us next month, each committee. And what would be great is to say, these are the 2 or 3, it's better to have 2 or 3 solid things or major goals, and we all know what those goals are. We're all in agreement, and then we can sort of go off and work on those. It's not to say that, as we all know, things come up throughout the year, month to month, sometimes week to week, that we have to respond to. But at least if we have sort of, we're planning ahead that we're going to, we're going to take on these 2 or 3 things in each committee this year. And if we have time, then we'll do more. But obviously, we want to make sure that what we say we'll do, we achieve. So last year we reorganized things to have an education advocacy committee, to have a committee that looks at, for lack of a better term, codes and practices, which, obviously covers the zoning stuff and covers, all of the things we worked on, best management practices, guides and things like that. And then we had what had been the tree planting committee, which we just, gave it a more general name, calling it the Arbor committee, to look at things that, items that involve trees directly. Sort of, I think of that group probably as the one that gets its hands dirty in the soil. Sadly, that group didn't have as much to do after March, because some of the things that group is tasked with doing didn't happen, or were things that were simply not safe to do. I still think that, unless there's any objection, and I'm willing to, for ideas, I still think these are basically the 3 main committees, 3 main sub-bodies of the commission. And my hope is that they will all be, each group will have the chance to be active this year, especially the Arbor committee. But I'm just curious as to members' thoughts in terms of just how we've sort of split out the work in these committees. Do people feel that these have worked well as sort of distinct groups?
Yes. I'm on the Education Advocacy Committee, and I just wanted to, because the Arbor Committee wasn't really staffed too well, because we really have 2 new people on that committee, that our committee sort of took over a couple of things that, that we've been working on, that you need to do, and we need to coordinate with you. And that has to do with nominating trees for the tree ordinance, and also where to plant more trees, particularly on private property. And we're looking at, one of our goals is to hopefully do it in the low canopy neighborhoods, because the Tree Commission as a whole put that as one of our priorities. So we'll need to coordinate with Mark and Lynn and Jeff, and sort of get together on those issues.
Yeah, and also I would say, and Mike will know this better, and I think the answer right now is we don't know. But that committee, one of its early tasks in the year is helping to coordinate and plan the Arbor Day event. And Arbor Day, as Mark reminded me yesterday in an email, I think is the 23rd. I know it's in April, but basically it's near the end of April. So we can hope that something will happen. But Mike, can you share anything with us? I know it's still a couple months off, but a few months off.
Sure. I think at a minimum, this year it would be good to get a few people together, if we can outside, and just do something on social media or something, just to host an Arbor Day. I think if that's something we have to do, but that so much can change in a few months.
Yeah.
So
I think last year, one of the, when we went into the lockdown in March, there was still 6 weeks off, and there was some talk that, of course, we didn't know what was coming completely. But there was some talk that it would be a good morale booster if we could do that. And I think this year that's the same. So to the extent that we can start thinking about that and making
Mhm.
something happen, I know that involves the tree stewards. I know that involves obviously selecting a tree. It involves a number of things, but I do think it would be good. It would be symbolic that things some things are starting to return, if not completely to normal, because we don't know what normal is going to be. That we're at least able to do this event. So we should definitely, that committee should be thinking about what we can make happen. And I think in that sense we can and we can talk a little later about whether we're contemplating any kind of tree planting projects. I know that's a lot of work and a lot of advanced prep. But I think probably after our last meeting, I was inspired just to hear what the tree stewards have been able to do throughout the pandemic and do it safely. So I think we could take our cue and our inspiration from what they were able to do. Obviously, they've had to adapt. I think the reality is that, and we all, I think, coming into this new year, realize it too. We hope that large numbers of us in our community will be protected and vaccinated, but it's looking like that date slips. But certainly the first quarter of this year, we should be able, by the end of the first quarter, I think we should be able to do something that it doesn't attract 100 people and we're packed in tight, but it's an outdoor event that we could do it safely, I guess is what I'm saying. Larger events, if we want to think about something later, but for something like that, I'm hopeful, but not much beyond that. Yeah, Paul?
But would we ever consider working with the schools to provide like an Arbor Day Zoom presentation, like a short 20-minute, 15-minute presentation on trees for schools, and if there's I don't know, just if parent people are looking for something to do, like if the tree commission could help, I could certainly help give a talk on sort of the benefits of trees or how they function. Just pick a age range that seems like we'd be targeting. And I don't know if we know science. We've worked with science teachers in the past at Venable and other places. Maybe we could reach out to them again and say, hey, is this something that, I don't know, just an idea.
Yeah,
And
that's
if I
a
could
great idea.
plug in for throwing something like iNaturalist in there, it would actually help our canopy study. Like if we could get like better data points on the species level, it would really be impactful. So yeah, if anybody has a network there, the iNaturalist app is open source. It's National Geographic. It's vetted. It's kid friendly. Other schools do this. Just again.
Wait, what is it? What is that?
The iNaturalist app for kids to be able to go out and take pictures of leaves and
Right.
identify trees would be significantly impactful right now if we could get some data. There are probably 2,000 trees in that data set right now, which is nothing. It's a smattering. But when you consider that we've got about 7,500 in the city's database, it's actually kind of getting comparable to what the city provides. So we could get better data. We could do better work. And they would be contributing to it. They would be
so the kids would be taking pictures of trees where?
In their backyard.
Okay.
Yeah. Like their own trees. Yeah.
I like these ideas because number one, they cross our committees. So we have education, advocacy, Arbor Day. Committees could even be as groups working together. I also, I don't know if you all feel this, but I feel like we need to find ways to break out of the cocoon that we've been in. We've been, operating, but there are things we could do to reach out to the community virtually or safely or in small groups, or that I feel like that should be a goal this year. And again, we're going to have to monitor what is safe and what our community looks like. And we don't know that on this particular day, but things will get better this year. And we will have an opportunity to do more than just virtual things or, participate in, virtual sessions with other bodies and groups. That's all beneficial, but some ways that we could get before the community. This, by the way, I've said it before, this is a great way, like meeting on Zoom, we're getting more exposure. The tree commission is getting more exposure than ever. But so I think as a goal this year, we ought to think like how we're going to ease ourselves, the commission, back into a world that's going to be safer, but maybe not as quickly as we would like. So, so there are definitely things that, as Peggy pointed out, the Arbor Committee, now that we've got it staffed back up, and we'll talk a little bit in a minute about terms rolling over on the commission broadly, but you know, that committee really does have things to do, and I think it would be great if that committee could sort of be reactivated, if only because some of that work does belong there, and there's plenty to do in education advocacy, and I think it's important, as Peggy said, to get that shifted back to Arbor Committee. So
who is leading the Arbor Committee?
well, we didn't, you know, all of the transition of the past year, we didn't have anybody when we met in March. I mean, we had one or two people, but we're still bringing on a new CATS person in the person of Mark. So we don't technically have a chair, but that committee didn't do anything the second half of the year. So that's something that I think Peggy and I will work with the members to help them. Mark's reached out to us and has already prompted us on like what are the deadlines, and so we'll have to engage with them a little bit on that. So currently it's Lynn and Mark and Jeff Jennings. So I want to be clear which Jeff we're talking about. So, back up a minute and just say education advocacy. I mean, there's so much there that I just don't know, like, aside from the Arbor work that we've talked about, the things that can go back, like tree nominations. I mean, there's just a lot under education advocacy. That started out as being education, but then everything that doesn't fall under codes and practices just sort of gets folded into education advocacy. And that's fine, as long as that committee remains a committee that's sort of staffed with more commission members. So, but thoughts about that? I mean, Peggy, you're the one who's been leading that group. I mean, you know, there's a lot going on there. Any ways you think we can divvy up further some of the workload?
Well, I think, you know, as you say, they kind of overlap. If you have an Arbor Day, obviously that has something to do with education and advocacy too. But, you know, I think we'll talk with Lynn and Jeff and Mark, and I think we'll have to bring them up to speed on some of the things we've been working on, like the tree nominations. And I think we can collaborate and get it done. I mean, you know, because I'm excited about those two issues. So I think we can collaborate and get it done.
But as for your committee itself, I mean, your committee is sort of the catch-all for a lot of things. You feel like if we can devolve some of those things back to the Arbor Committee, that your committee has time and hands to do the work that needs to be done this coming year.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. And then our third committee, and I guess some of that work was in the process of being completed, and Paul's prompted me on
I got to run 1 second.
come on, Paul, I'm drawing a blank. You just reached out, the manual, the
Design manual.
design manual. Yeah. So some of this was in progress. Some of the things that committee is charged with in progress and seeming, I guess, to approach some state of completion. And some of it has been.
But we're in the middle of the code, the actual comp plan update, which is the big one.
Correct. And then some of it is yet, like, there's a lot of work to come. So, but I mean, I think that what falls under that committee stays there. I mean, it's logical stuff. The only thing I will say is that, and I'm looking ahead, but Paul is going off on the end of March. So, because we all got bumped up, you were technically July, so we had you for 6 more months. But
How did it get bumped up?
They changed all the dates to the end of the quarter, the first quarter. So, believe me, I'd love for you to stay around for ever, and we can probably revisit this maybe with the city clerk. But that was a blanket thing where terms got readjusted. So you are technically right now scheduled to leave on the 31st. And I say that because that leaves Tim and Jeff P, at least for the time being.
I thought Mark was
So-
on our committee too for some reason.
Well,
Mark went, or did he get?
Mark's been sort of detailed over to, just given his experience and interest, and sort of Peggy and I talked with Mark, sort of meshed a little bit better with some of the projects and education advocacy. And at the time in particular, that's stuff that Peggy could use some help and inspiration. I know that Mark also sort of worked a little with Anson a couple of points along the way, sort of connecting on things. So I'll let Mark speak for going forward, but I'm just
Come
looking
on,
ahead
Mark,
and
come back to the team.
he's still on the team.
Still on the team.
Codes and practices. Come on, buddy. Get back over here. You can do 2 teams.
I'm available to help out. I don't think I can. I was a little bit overloaded there for a while and still continue to be, but if that makes more sense, if there's a need there, I can move over.
No, I don't want to take you away from. If you're working hard with Peggy, that's fine. We'll work it without you. But if you're freed up and you want to work back on that design manual again, because we did such good work on it the first round, in the second round, it would be great. But
Yeah, I saw the correspondence on the diagrams and such with Jack Dawson and Marty, and that might be a place for me to plug in
Let me see.
Yeah.
graphic skills.
Let me see.
So essentially what we agreed was that Mark was going to, we don't have a position in our bylaws, but we agreed that it was work well for Mark to be minister without portfolio, as they say. So he floats around the government when we need him. So that's not to preclude any work under codes and practices. I do think, and I'm just looking ahead, I do think though that when we will be doing by the end of the first quarter, going into the second quarter, we will be going through the soliciting new members, at least one new member. So we ought to be thinking about, in terms of that committee, I think could use one permanent new member. So that doesn't mean that Mark couldn't be, as he said, dip in on some of the projects while he's still with us on the commission. But I think that that's one place where we could bring somebody in who has that skill set. We could clone Tim because Tim was a perfect fit for that as well. But so we should, again, I'm jumping ahead, but we need, in terms of staffing, that's one place where I think we could bring somebody on to do. So those are our committees. I don't think anything really falls through the cracks. I think it covers all of the things we're working on. And I guess now what I would do is say to those committees that, what we had I sort of boiled it down to one word goals for each of the committees. That's at the top of that organization list. Obviously education advocacy advises, educates, and advocates. That goes without saying. So those are overall goals, but what will the objectives be this year? So that committee can go off and come back in February and say, we have a lot to do, but these are the 2 or 3 things that we would really like to accomplish this year, and maybe even have a plan, like over the next year, the next 4 quarters, this is how we're going to accomplish it. The Arbor Committee plants, preserves, and commemorates. I should say one of the things too, the Arbor Committee is working with Mike. So early on in the year, at the relevant juncture, getting together with Mike to start developing, tree planting list and all that. Mike did that this year and came back to the commission, but that's really a good place for the Arbor Committee to be working. And then for the codes and practice, monitor, review, and I know that seek compliance created some agita, so to speak, among some that, and we clarified that at the last meeting. That's not to say that we want to be in the business of overseeing and monitoring but just making sure that in places where perhaps we have the mechanisms, the codes, the manuals, the best practices, just keeping an eye that those things are being adhered to, and if they are, fine. We're not involved in that on a regular basis, but certainly that is within the ambit of what the tree commission is supposed to do. So those are the overall goals for those committees. I don't think anything changes there. The only thing is to allow the committees to go off for the next month, come back at the next meeting, and just brainstorm amongst yourselves Remember now that we have the option for committees to meet and to meet through Zoom. So we just need to coordinate that with Brian, including if a committee wants to meet before this meeting, then, we just set it up and chunk out an hour's time for the committee to meet. So that would be the plan for the committees. I want to look since I prefaced it a minute ago, I want to look very quickly at membership. Since I surprised Paul with the notice that he was only here through the end of March. It was,
Yeah,
I
I'm
know, it was
actually
July.
writing people to fill in for my spot. I'm recruiting as we speak here.
But if you were surprised, it was July. It was an odd date. It was like July 27th, whatever, the date you joined. So we last year we were going through we were filling a lot of positions, and we were also seeking having the possibility for members to renew. So this year it's a little simpler because obviously we've brought some new members on. Paul's seat obviously comes open, and so that would be a 3-year term. And I think in that case we should be, and I'm glad you're already working on it, Paul, but we should be thinking about somebody whose skill set would work well to support Tim and Jeff Pacelli in terms of all of that work. So we should all be thinking about that. And I'll talk about the calendar for this in a second. The other two, so when Emily and the two Jeffs joined the commission last year, after, as we all know, a delay because of council not being able to appoint them, they were assigned just randomly terms. By that I mean Emily and Jeff Jennings were assigned what were 2 incomplete terms. So that is why their terms began officially on June 16th of last year, but end on the 31st of March. They are both eligible to re-up. And very much Jeff Jennings is not with us this evening, so I'll reach out to him. Emily we don't need an answer at this moment, but you still have to go through the paperwork again. It's sort of pro forma, just apply again, but very much hope that they will both consider re-upping. They're allowed 2 3-year terms because they served out 6 or whatever, 9 months of a previous term. So those are the 3 terms, but really 1 seat to fill at this moment, and that will be Paul's seat. And just to complete this, Jeff Pacelli was randomly assigned a 4-year term, and that was to stagger which makes good sense, which was to stagger the terms. So our terms actually right now are very good in terms of for continuity and institutional memory. Obviously things can intervene to change that, but the commission is set up right now with the terms in the right place. Jeff's goes through to June 30th, 2024. And I'm not sure, I don't have to talk to the clerk about this just yet, but I'm not sure at that point if you're only eligible for a 2-year term, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So, anyhow, that's where we stand in terms of membership. Are there any questions about that? And I'm just presuming that everybody else, 4 terms expire in 22 and 3 terms expire in 23. So I'm assuming that everybody else is planning to stick around, and if so, that definitely pleases me, because the more hands we have, the more work that we can accomplish. So keeps the commission at full staffing. Any questions or comments about that? Observations?
I've got one of each, Brian. The question is just if you can reconfirm Paul's 3 months remaining and not 6, because that is a big effect on the codes and practices committee. And then just the observation as to how membership terms and committee membership interact. I've got relatively short amount of experience serving through the tree commission. The same is true with Jeff Pacelli, of course, one of our newest members. So just want that, to be said, I guess, in terms of that committee going forward strong beyond, April and forward. You mentioned me, perfect perfect fit, but I've actually got no private practice or public service experience in the city of Charlottesville prior to joining the tree commission last year. So I may not have the depth and the sort of tactile familiarity that you think, but I feel good about moving forward. Just want to say all that out loud so we can bear that in mind moving forward.
Well, you've been-
And
you've
Tim,
been-
even though I'm going off in March, I've got a file cabinet in my brain of all this stuff that I'm really happy to be still involved in some capacity from a help standpoint. So, you don't have to think of me as totally gone.
That's great, because Roxanne is helping us on the Education Advocacy Committee. I was just going to suggest that Paul continue to help with the Codes Committee. That would be.
Yeah, where I can, I will definitely assist with that.
Yep.
And I also work
Absolutely.
on it a lot before I leave, so that it's in a good spot and we're all on the same page. I know that the looks like the comp plan has taken a pause. Did you hear that? Anyway, we can talk about that later. But
Yeah, no, I was searching through my email. I'm like, did I miss something? But I haven't gotten any correspondence on the whole Seville Plans Together initiative since the end of November.
well, and I thought I saw something today in the recent news that said the city was putting on hold. Right?
That was the strategic plan for like
Strategic
city councilors.
Sorry.
Yeah, so-
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct. That was a strategic plan. We had pushed hard to get a statement before the council, which we did. We all worked together on that. We got a very good statement before them. You saw a lot of it, by the way, in the annual report to council. For instance, why reinvent the wheel? But there was talk even back then in November that it was likely. I think a lot of it just has to do with the continued uncertainty in terms of leadership and looking to fill positions. So yeah, that's definite. Tim, my comment to you when I said that, a perfect fit, I was thinking also in terms of you have a lot of background experience, expertise. I mean, working within government on these issues, so that certainly does help a lot. And just know how the sausage is made, I guess is what I'm saying. Otherwise, you've fooled me with your expertise. So keep doing that. Keep whatever you're doing, just keep doing it.
Well, I
But we're not
appreciate
going to
that.
we're not going to leave you high and dry. And I certainly didn't mean to. I knew Paul wasn't going anywhere. He's still here in town. And so, and that goes, frankly, I mean, people on committees, we assign and work with you to where we think best fit. But there's a lot of collaboration, as many of you know. People from other committees have certain experience or memories or institutional history, and so we should always all feel free to just reach out to others beyond our committee to say, hey, listen, do you know a little bit about this? And since we all work together, so in a sense, the committees are a little bit of an artificial construct, but so we're all here to help each other. I think unless there are any other comments on sort of this planning part of our meeting, which leaves us a little bit ahead of schedule, which is always a good thing. For new members, is there anything that we've gone over? Just any observations you might have, Jeff or Emily, or anything you want us to clarify? All seem pretty straightforward to you. Good. Okay. Well, then the sort of big item, the main item of business.
Hang on, I saw
besides-
Mark
I-
Zonhofer go on mute there.
Oh,
Come on.
sorry, Mark, I didn't see you.
That's all right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm new to all of this and new on this committee, and the committee really didn't do anything active, the Arbor committee, and especially because of the pandemic situation, I don't know the mechanics for how the committee can meet with the requirements for openness that Brian Wheeler shared with us before. So between now and February, if I wanted to work with Lynn and Jeff Jennings and Peggy for some background, I guess, how do we do that? Who do we see to set that up and that kind of stuff?
So I would say the best thing for especially the first go around is to coordinate with Mike. Selecting a date, Mike can coordinate with Brian, And in terms of like actually running the meeting, I mean, it would be a meeting that depending on your schedule, Mike, it would be good if you could be in on that meeting as well. I know you have a lot to do, but maybe for the first meeting, so sort of help co-host it. And
Sure.
so I would point you, Mark, to Mike, and you know, set that up, because it's a very good point, because that's true of the other two committees. It's January 5th. We're going to have a meeting first week of February, so committees should start thinking about meeting so that you can put a little report together and get it prepared for the last days of January, so we can send that out with the meeting packet. So that's a good question. So Mark and Mike will work together. Is that good for you, Mark?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. All right, well, that concludes organization and business. Oh, and I just scanning down to the bottom of that list, we do have, and I think it's important to continue to note, we do have a number of representatives. Tim, obviously, we've discussed on the comp plan. I'm still monitoring East High streetscape, but there's very little going on there, except I may have said this last month. I do know by their schedule that they were in the process of any right of ways that they had to purchase. And I think final design plan, I think there's a lot's going to happen in spring. So I think we're going to start to see that definitely move forward. Barracks and Emmett is moving ahead, though it's a little bit behind. Jody, have you heard any more on Fontaine? Meeting coming up or anything?
No, I have not. But to also be honest, I haven't dug real hard either.
Okay.
So I haven't. I need to do so.
Okay. Thank you. And then we still have the IPM. I mean, I can't remember who used to serve as our representative, and I'm not sure if that's still ongoing, Mike, and if somebody needs to be from the commission involved with that. What are your thoughts?
Yes, we're still we plan to have it. It was previously John Mann who retired, but there'll be somebody putting it together and presenting it.
But I thought, like, wasn't one a year Roseanne or something? Didn't somebody from our commission get involved, or is there? I'm not sure if that's a placeholder.
In the past, we've had someone on that, and I think it was part of initial interest in that, but there has been no real interest in that from any tree commission members since. And so we've sort of left it vacant until someone is interested in that. It's usually a pretty simple report where they show which pesticides they're using, how much they're using, and then sort of general strategies. There's very little place for input typically, in my experience. It's more of a token role on that process. So no, it hasn't really gone anywhere.
I believe it was a requirement for the tree commission when they were set up. I believe it was in the bylaws, and I think it was previously Roseanne had attended.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll definitely check into it. I mean, if we have to have somebody, somebody will participate. That's fine. But I mean, in terms of like the actual delivery, the deliverable is more on the order of a staff report, which is sort of what you've done the last couple of years. So, all right. Well, Mike and I'll check into that, and if there's a need for somebody to be named to that, then we'll just pick somebody's name out of a hat, or the first person who, well, we'll figure it out. Mark, I'm glad we're going through this. Mark is listed as the representative to Place, and I know there's been a lot of fluidity with Place. Can you just, Mark, apprise us of where, I've heard a bit on a council call I was on, but where does that stand, and do you still see yourself as our representative to Place?
So the last few meetings have consisted of kind of strategizing among ourselves how to how to best be useful. I can't remember if I think maybe I only explained to you and Peggy in an email that Place was originally charged with reporting to council and now is sort of under the NDS umbrella, which means that, without without sort of more assertive planning by place itself, as a group, it will sort of morph into an advisory body that chases after whatever NDS feels they might want to ask place to look at. And so there's another meeting coming up. One of the topics that came up in just an open conversation that might be worth a kind of offline session is likely to be the changes happening to West Main Street. And it might be something that, the Tree Commission has a pretty strong feelings about it. It's becoming apparent that that maybe the city can't afford everything that was planned for the West Main Street project. And it's it's a sensitive topic and a lot of work has gone into it, but that's potentially what place is working on. And I'm very interested in continuing to be on that group if we can sort of turn it into something useful and meaningful. And there's been a significant loss of institutional memory from founding members and others. So that's made it additionally more difficult. It's a group that has been in existence longer than most members of council and the planning commission in the same period. So managing that turnover and a kind of understanding of why place is there has been a challenge, especially this past year.
Okay,
Is there anything in particular about West Main, sorry to interrupt, just that has been, besides just a broad-based, cost issues, have they started to do any value engineering to the design that would change the current design?
So there have been discussions in the budgeting process by council and some members of the planning commission, and Jody may have a sense of sort of to what extent that the scope maybe needs to be examined, but I don't think the consultants have been charged with modifying or value engineering the design. I think that right now it's kind of at the level of council deciding whether or not funding for it can be justified given some of the city's other more urgent priorities, or what many members of council consider more urgent priorities.
Yeah, and to follow up on Mark, what we've been told, Planning Commission been told, is that because of the funding irregularities of the last year and the changes that have been are trying to get a balanced budget and COVID and the what's that's done to the funding allocations, that the West Main project is just not a high priority at this point. And in fact, in reviewing a project on West Main, the 612 project, I think it is, we're asking about the West Main impact of the design, and pretty much told to don't even worry about it. It's not going to happen for many years. So we've been sort of prepared for the fact that it's not going to happen anytime soon.
Okay. Well, that's all very useful and good for us to know. And I think that, Mark, obviously your willingness to continue however place moves forward. All of these chances to participate are ways to further leverage, whether it's a streetscape project or there. I think they're all very valuable. So you'll just keep us apprised of what's going on there, and we'll keep your name on that. That's added to your portfolio, or your lack of portfolio. so to speak. The one thing that's not on there, because I forgot to add it, it's elsewhere, but we do have Jeff Pacelli is, and I want to get this right, it's for the climate action plan, correct? There's a long title for the subcommittee, but basically it's the city's climate action plan, correct, Jeff?
So, yeah, essentially it's land use. Each kind of subcommittee's core topic team, and it's basically land use planning. I think I checked in with Susan, I think like December, like early December, first week of December, and there had been no movement on scheduling the first meeting for that. And I actually just checked in with her this morning and haven't received a response yet. So still pending.
Great. Okay, well, with that, the only thing we have to find is an integrated pest management person, but we're fully staffed our representations and our committees. And that is the end of that portion. So now we're 3 minutes behind, but that's okay. That was a good conversation. We are now at the annual report to council. So what we last discussed in December, it was sort of a final look at the redeveloped graphs that formed sort of the backbone, the visual for the report. And I had hoped, the month went by quickly and I had things come up for me personally. I didn't get to the report as quickly as I thought, but so that's why you got a draft today. You've seen the graphs before, but that is the report, just to refresh memories and for new members, that is a report that we present each year to council. And usually that comes in November, but given everything that's going on, that will be presented, will be sent to council at the end of this week, and a presentation will be made at their meeting on January 19th, which is a Tuesday because of the holiday. That report, as far as I know, and Paul is our institutional memory here, but that report has been delivered every year by the commission. I mean, that's just going off each year like clockwork, correct, Paul? That's happened. And I will say that I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Correct. Yeah. Every
Yeah.
single year we have the state of the
Yeah.
forest and give them the
Yeah.
update on what's been happening.
Yeah. And I will say that when I participated in a planning session with council and on boards and commissions back in the summer, at least one councilor remarked very positively about that. Said that we don't hear from a lot of groups, but we always hear from the tree commission. So I just want to say that it's important. We're charged with doing it. It's appreciated by council. It's very important. Just as the statement that we sent in the strategic plan, which was all good work, and we can repurpose that. These are things that the commission takes very seriously, and that is, and I heard it with my own two ears, that is appreciated by council. In fact, when there was a discussion about which groups, boards and commissions continued to be necessary, because some of them were not serving a purpose anymore, and so some groups were abandoned. One of the things that came up was that some groups we never hear from. So it is important, and I just think we should all know that council does. They're very busy, but they expressed an interest, and actually they were happy to hear from us. So I take that as a cue that we, not just once a year, but we should continue, and we have a goal to, when it's safe or whatever, virtually, to sit down and meet with individual council members. I know they have a lot on their plate, but so it's important that we do that. So that is the background for this report. The report that I sent you today, again, you've seen all the charts and graphs, but basically builds out narrative around those. Paul did do some updating and some reformatting and sent a version out today, which is essentially the same with a few tweaks in it, but does expand that graphic. That is something that obviously had to be done. I sent it out in its form, since you had already seen that, but obviously it needed to be enlarged. As far as just to Paul, since he emailed all of us about this, as far as the page length and that sort of thing, I'm not too concerned about that. We're able to show all of our activities on there, and we're still within like 5 pages. However, we might not have in the end a big full-blown financial graphic as we usually do. So we might gain a lot of space, and we might actually be able to get it back into 4 pages. But essentially, after tonight's meeting, the only thing that I would plan to do, based on any comments you have, any reflections, is to essentially just do a final formatting and submit it to council by Friday. So council needs at close of business Friday for its meeting on the 19th. So that's what I have left to do on it. But I open up now to the floor for any comment or discussion about the report. And if you want to look at one, you certainly can look at the one that Paul sent out. You would have gotten an email. What was it, Paul, around 12:30 or so today?
I
Midday.
resent it actually like 15 minutes ago. So
Okay.
you may have just gotten an update to it. Or 30 minutes ago, or, I sent a PDF. Apparently the first one, it looks like the formatting wasn't working. So I sent it as a PDF. It's just a low res thing, but you should be able to pull it up. You could share your screen with it if you have it available. But
I have the Word version. So
did that work for you? For some reason, it didn't work for
yeah,
Peggy.
the Word version worked fine. So what I would say is, just again, since you address this to all of us in your email, I think what I will do is anything I added some things in and then realized they weren't fiscal year 20, and so I went back and took them out. I think just to be, that said, I think this report is really strictly a fiscal year 20 report, but in the presentation to be made to council on the 19th, and in that PowerPoint, which that is something that I'm definitely going to coordinate with you Paul, a little and get your feedback on. But there's the ability to not just hit some of these high points, but also to sort of jump into the present and looking forward. And that's our opportunity to sort of give our wish list to council. So that's I see that as the second half. But as far as this report, I think it's just reporting on the activities of fiscal year 20, which under normal terms would have ended months ago, but has ended many months ago because we're not operating in normal circumstances. We could walk through it, or you've had a chance to read through it. I guess it's just, I don't think there's anything in there. You've seen, the commission has seen a lot of this. A lot of the language in there comes from our statement on the strategic plan. Yeah. So, and that's been reviewed twice by the commission. We've gone through that, and a number of commissioners have had input on that. I guess, are there just any general thoughts? I mean, I don't know how long a discussion we've had in past years on this report. Tim's hand is up.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I just was reading this pretty quickly, so I may not understand what the urban tree canopy section is saying on page 1, kind of the bottom of column 1 and over to column 2. It looks like a reference of a 5% loss equals 325 acres of lost tree canopy. And then just a little bit later, the 2% decline, I think, should read like 135 acres. It says 325 twice. So I guess we just need to make sure and then the other thing, I think this is tough to talk about statistics with narrative language, but I want to make sure we're saying that there's 2 things that you can reference, right? Like the overall area of the city lost a certain amount of tree canopy, or the amount of the city that's in tree canopy, a percentage of that was lost. And just making sure that we're communicating that clearly and referencing the same base area in each case. Because the bold summary, I'm wondering if it could be tweaked a little bit just to be more clear. If that's saying 7% of the city's land area less is now covered, or of the city's tree canopy, we're now this much less.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. As to the first, that's an editing. So I'll correct that to reflect.
My bad.
This is a, and you know, we've written this up a couple of times, and it's a tricky thing to convey, because what we wanted to show was that, you know, with iTree, we were actually able to go back and so it's suggesting that, I guess, when there's a flyover, the flyover is going to confirm this or not. But this is sort of a composite thing. Normally, we would just be expressing what had happened up to the last flyover. So in trying to write this up, yes, in general, that section was a little tricky to get across. But I think to your latter point, that's an excellent point. And I know near the end of the meeting last time we talked about, and I think Jody had raised this in terms of like just trying to get us to grasp the size. So so what do people think as to what's the best way to express that number? And Paul, since you had you had your last to have your hands on this, what are your thoughts about how to express that?
Oh, I remember last time in our meeting, and I just forgot about this, but I made a quick diagram that showed how much 7% was, and I just completely forgot about it until just now. So if there is room in the report, like I can make a very fast diagram that shows what 7% or 460 acres would be, that shows, canopy loss as like a chart or as a big circle, or, so I could do that. We just need to, if we get I could do that tomorrow or the next day. Just, if we get the financial data in there, I can sort of add that. If that's helpful.
That would be good if we could do that. But I think, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but your question was 7% of what?
Yeah, because in this case, it's saying that of the total land area in the city of Charlottesville, 7% is now covered in trees, but there's actually more of a decline in our tree canopy than 7%. If that
correct. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
So I just meant to say that, like, we might either want to make sure that's clear or give both of those statistics to say our total tree canopy is now 7% less, which is actually some larger number percentage of what used to be there in 2004. Because that actually tells a more alarming and kind of a more maybe accurate story.
Yeah, that's a sort of a 15% loss, so it's actually a much greater number.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it muddies or not, but and I'm not remembering it exactly, but I was calculating last time what the acreage is in terms of a square mile, and wasn't it about 0.75, 3/4 of a square mile, or 1/4 of a square mile? Anyway, I put it in terms of a square mile, knowing that there are 10.4 square miles in the total city. And that to me was very impactful. And that's square miles in the city, all of it. That's not just the trees. Trees are a much smaller percentage of that. And we've lost a certain square mile percentage of what we have in the city, in a very small city. That's impactful.
Right.
Yeah. I remember, because you were last meeting, you were talking about that, Jody, and Paul actually did it right while we were meeting, and it looked great. It did anything visual.
It's still sitting on my desktop at work. I just have to open it up and do it.
Yeah. I think we'll have room, because I don't know the CIP chart, the visual charts are much more impactful, I think. In the CIP, we haven't gotten straight yet chart, and it's a bunch of numbers, and I think people's eyes just gloss over. We were talking, maybe we could, if we had time, to do a bar chart that might show the loss of funding for tree planting. That's something we could do, but I don't know if we're going to have time.
Mike did send one late this afternoon, and I will say that, and thank you for doing that, Mike, but when you look at it, I don't want to say it doesn't add anything to the narrative, but it's not as helpful as these other graphs. And I think for this report, as we're discussing it now, I think that getting that section clear about tree canopy, that's really more critical than having the additional chart in there for the finances. That we can develop further between now and the presentation to council. I can add a slide in there, because since we'll be talking about our wish list and money, that might be a better time to actually have a visual in there for financial at the meeting in 2 weeks. Use the space that we have in this report, and Paul and I can work on this the next couple of days just to flesh out and clarify this a little bit more. Because I think one more graphic, which really, I don't think we have to get rid of anything in here. I think it just clarify the language a little and add something more that looks like, holy cow, look how big that is. I think it's the best use of these pages. 5 pages is not an onerous report. We can certainly afford the additional space. We can use that space. So if everybody's in agreement with that, I think that's probably how we should proceed on that. I see Jeffrey's.
Yeah, just a quick comment on kind of like the graphical presentation of it. If the financial graphs don't go on the report, the map showing the low income neighborhoods in Charlottesville have less canopy. I think that's probably our highlight graph or chart of the whole document. So maybe even increase that to a full page. Because as of right now, if you zoom in on the PDF, I don't know if the resolution will be any better in its final form, but zoom in, you can't. Okay, you can't.
Yeah, and I just quickly PDF'd it. I can make it so it's a higher resolution.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jeff. And in fact, when Paul sent out his version today, and I knew it was small when I sent it to you, but it was in the interest of time just getting it out. But it certainly, I'm looking at it right now in the Word version, and it's quite clear. But to your point, yes, I think the overall canopy and that graphic are just 2 key points, and partly because some of the other is update of things that they've heard, and we're adding a little information. But these are two high impact bits of information that will definitely also, I should say, get highlighted in the presentation. So if anything gets carried out of this report in the PowerPoint presentation, it will be those 2 items for certain. So that's an excellent point. Peggy?
I agree. Paul, I wanted to ask you, we found out, I sent out an article to everyone. Richmond, of course, is doing an incredible job of reforesting their city. I mean, not only Reforest Richmond organization, but of course what Chesapeake Bay is doing on the south side. And their goal is 60% canopy, which, so I don't think we have to be embarrassed about our goal of 50%. And you had mentioned you might put it in there. I think it's always interesting to see what other cities are doing, but I didn't see it. Is it in there?
It's definitely in the PDF that I resent out. It's on the first page, and it's just a reference. I don't know if anyone wants to share a screen to show it, but it is in there, and I put it on ours.
So the other one you sent.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there's a dotted line in total tree canopy. I'm not sharing my screen because I'm working from 2 devices. I'm on my iPad.
Me too. Yeah.
So that's why I'm not sharing the screen. But in that total tree canopy, anybody who received the one I sent out earlier today, in that total tree canopy graphic on the first page, we have our red target line at 50%. Paul added a dotted red line in at 60% and captioned it Richmond 2037 target, and in parentheses it says currently 42% coverage. So
yeah.
The only thing that I think that's great, I think it's always good. We've done it in other forms. We did it in the statement on the strategic plan. We cited other cities. I mean, we compared our city less than favorably to other cities. And I think that's always a fair thing to say, because as Roxanne, who may be with us on the public forum right now, has always said, is that we pride ourselves in being a green city. So a green city means you do these things. So I think it's great to have that line in there. The only thing that I sort of like jumped back at was I thought 2037, good Lord, that's almost, 20 years from now, but I guess it's not that far off.
Not that far.
We're not suggesting to council that we have 17 years or 16 years to reverse this trend. We really, and I know that's not what it meant there, but just seeing that 2037, at first I thought, is that 2,037 acres? I wasn't even thinking years. I was like, what is that number? But so it's in there, and I think it's very good to keep it in there. And Paul, since we're talking about edits that you made, just so there was one other.
At the very end, the last paragraph, I just added a note about under the location of trees planted on public property. I added a note that says, in order to improve low canopy rates in low income neighborhoods in 2020, Parks
Yeah.
and Rec developed a weighted scale to help prioritize planting trees within low income, low canopy neighborhoods and public right of way. So I just wanted to sort of highlight, because this last page talks about sort of the good things that we're doing. So it's not all negative. It's really, that Parks and Rec is really, emphasizing large canopy trees and, those things. So.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. This is why these documents get sent around, because I'm glad, and that definitely should be in there. Should be a shout out. So that's good. Thank you for clarifying to the. Somebody has shared their screen, but I can't. Okay. There is one other thing that again, there's nothing new here, but just in terms of the prefatory language on the 2 sections. So again, what we did this year is we just folded in the list of activities and just made it part of this report. And it had gone out as a separate document. That list, just to be clear, I mean, that list was largely a list of things that we did during the pandemic, but I thought it was important to stress to council and to the public, frankly, that even during that period of time, the commission was individually and in small groups continuing to work. So that's a little bit new in terms of prefatory language. And then way at the top of the report, again, nothing new there in terms of, I tweaked it, but I did think it was important at that very opening, since we have communicated this in individual conversations to council and to staff members. And also we included this in our statement on the strategic plan to really nail home that this commission is really sees its mission as having fully evolved, not beyond its charge, but that we are looking at things beyond aesthetics and beauty and even just tree types, that we really are undertaking larger issues. And so I thought it was important to just say that right up front to council. They will have seen it. Well, I don't know if they read the statement since they were suspending the strategic plan, but if they did have a chance to read that statement, they've seen that language. You all have seen that language. We've discussed this individually. I think it's important also in our 10th anniversary, which I don't think we have fully officially noted last month, but happy 10th anniversary to the Charlottesville Tree Commission. That, if you look at our general charge, although it never mentions specifically those larger issues, climate change, sustainability, environmental and social justice, these are issues that clearly fall within our general ambit. And to refer back to the conversation, to the discussion with council back in the summer when they were going through the revamping of all the boards and commissions, this issue actually did come up by one council member in terms of these being important issues and that these are things that the tree commission was working on. So there's a recognition, there's an understanding. We haven't gone back to council and said, change our charter, we're 10 years and 2 days old and we need new language. But again, I think it's important to just keep hitting on these issues and just let people know that this is this is essentially the evolution and the direction that the commission is going in terms of the work that we want to do. So I don't have anything else to add to the report. I think it's great that we're having this conversation because we're going to make some important amendments to the report. I guess I would like to just leave opportunity for any other comment, or is there anything else in here, especially if most of you looking at this with a fresh set of eyes, was there anything else in here that you thought could be clearer besides what we've discussed at this point? Or did you think that, or do you think that we're missing any of the points in these charts and graphs? Anything that jumps out on anybody? It's an opportunity to speak.
Brian, I think also, but I want to congratulate you and Paul for writing this, because I think you really combine what we did last year, just showing charts, with a lot of what we said in the strategic plan. I don't think we can say those points enough, about the trees are more than beauty, and that we want to work on our health is connected with trees, and that. So I think you all did a great job. One thing, did we mention in the activities that we made a statement for the strategic plan? I'm not sure. Did we have that in there?
Well, I put it in there, but then it wasn't in last fiscal year. So I'm a stickler. This is a report on fiscal year 2020. So,
Okay.
but we have 2 bites at the apple. Remember, in 2 weeks, in the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Definitely is an opportunity to not only fold in or pull in the key points from this, but also to hit the high points of the strategic plan statement that we made,
Okay.
and also what we're calling our wish list. So that's something that Peggy and I and reach out to you, Paul, and perhaps rope in some other commission members. But that's sort of what we'll do after this report gets submitted. So yes, we will. Everybody will know that we have a strategic plan. We did that strategic plan statement.
Will you send out a reminder before you go before council to the tree commission for us all to watch?
Yes. And
Thank you.
And again, you won't be upset that I'm getting to appear at 4 o'clock virtually in my pajamas, as opposed to you had to stay there all night.
Yeah, those are incredible sessions.
And kudos to council. That is a new development, I think, as of December, where they have moved reports and public reports, and I think boards and commission reports, to an early session. It's still council, but then I think they break for half an hour and go into executive session and come back. I think that's terribly humane, not just to the presenter, but also to the public that would be interested in the work that individual bodies do. And I think that, again, what we're doing right now in these Zoom meetings, and also those presentations, are critical parts of open and transparent governance, and that people in the city, citizens, need to see what these boards and commissions are doing. They might not be interested in all of us, but they're interested in some. So I think that's great that council has moved that to 4 o'clock. Jody?
Just one comment, looking through the report. From my experience on the Planning Commission, we get a lot of material to read. We have almost 200 pages of material to read for our meetings. I can't imagine what City Council gets. And looking through this, if there's a way of, if there are significant sentences in the paragraphs, or if you could highlight those important sort of summary sentences, or the most impactful sentences, to sort of to get them to punch out, that might be helpful for a counselor who is just going to scan it.
And Jody, I tried to make a couple of those key sentences bold in each one. Do you have that copy, or do you think you literally should highlight it?
I copied off what I see are some of the quotes are in italics, and it's just headings of the paragraphs that are bold. So you did one since this one?
I did try to punch it a little bit to
okay, good.
That.
Good.
So,
I'm sorry.
Yes. So
my
yes,
apologies.
Paul beat me to the punch on that, but thank you. The one version I sent out today was sort of in haste to get something before everybody, but excellent point. And Paul did do that, and so the key points are
perfect,
bold and highlighted, italicized and bold. Yep.
Beyond that, all you can do is hit them over the head with a club.
Jeff, what do you got?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm looking at would be page 2 of the PDF, specifically the new plantings versus replacements bar graph. And in just reading it, the sentence above the graph says, analysis further shows that a majority of the trees planted each year by Parks and Rec are replacements of trees that have been removed. But then, looking at the bar graph, you're seeing that new plantings actually dominate the percentage. So it reads a little confusing to me.
Yeah, I think I misread that and the text was too small and I didn't read it properly. So I made that mistake of editing that before sending it out. So I think you're right, that it should be not a majority, but a large percentage instead of that. Good catch.
So I'm not going to make you, I apologize, I'm not going to make Jeff repeat that, but Paul picked that up. So he and I will coordinate on the final edits. I had a low battery situation, and so if it looked like I dropped off the face of the earth, that's what happened.
Thanks,
so Paul
Jeff.
and I, thanks for finding that. Paul and I will coordinate on final edits. Mark, your hand is up and you're on mute. Mark, you're still on mute.
The CATS board met yesterday and asked me if I would obtain from you, from the commission, information about when anything is going to be presented this month to the city council, so that members who were interested would be able to log on and pay attention. So I don't know the details of that. How do I find that out to get that back to them?
So we are scheduled to present on January 19th. That's Tuesday, so 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
And I'm going to confirm that with the clerk. What I was last told was that the reports are presented at 4 o'clock, but I'm not sure how many and in what order. But for that is going to the Zoom. There's a center, the webcast center. You basically, I think, just have to, if you want to watch the meeting, Brian Wheeler's on here, so I don't want to misstate this, but if it comes to city council meetings, do you have to sign up the way you sign up for these meetings? I'm not sure about that. I think to see them visually, because city council meetings are handled differently because they're covered on a broader platform.
I suspect that, Brian, when you want to send out your link, there'll be a link online you can just copy and send to the tree commission to say, here's a link to the presentation coming up, and then Mark can then just send that to CATS.
Yeah, but in terms, I definitely would share the presentation, but in terms of like, I may get a link, but I'm going to get a link as a participant, so I can't send them my link. I'm an actual member. It's very different. Like right now, the public doesn't have access in the same way to this meeting that we do. We're participants. So I'm expecting to get a link saying I can participate, share my screen, all that sort of stuff. So what I'm saying is that the city council has slightly different rules in terms of like, if you want to join a city council meeting versus if you want to join the tree commission. It's not complicated, but I will get the information and connect you with Mark with that information so you can share it with CATS. At this point, we're still 2 weeks out, so you know I think if you give them a 7 to 10 days notice, that should work. So I'll clarify that and get back to you. As far as because you raised that point, and there was as far as the report itself, this written report that we're reviewing. And we've had this come up, I know, a couple of times, because we definitely do want to collaborate and coordinate and liaise, especially with CATS and with other groups. Our rule will be for reports that we're presenting to any city body from council on down. First, we release it to them, and then once they've had an opportunity to see it, then I'm happy to share it with, obviously, outside of the membership of the tree commission. So for example, any of the reports that we do, including this one, once I've sent this to council and they have it, I'll be happy, give council 24 hours so that they actually get it in their inbox and then send it to Mark for you to share with others. So again, it's not an issue of sharing these. There's nothing confidential about what we do. It's a courtesy to the bodies to which we're presenting these reports that they see it first. And if that makes sense to everybody. So that's just, since we're talking about it, I thought I'd clarify that. So sometime over the weekend, Mark, I'll send you a copy of the report, the final one, or I'll just say, hey, the one I sent to commission, you can share that now with others. There's also a larger PowerPoint presentation, and I don't know how Paul handled this last year. If sort of the same rule applies, should that sort of be embargoed until presented to council? Because you did not send you did or did not send the PowerPoint ahead of your presentation. You just made the presentation and then provided the PowerPoint to council after the fact, correct?
Correct. And I also sent the same PowerPoint to the tree commission to download, and and we can also put that same PowerPoint up onto any number of platforms.
So for that PowerPoint, then after the meeting, which it'll have been presented to the public, then I'm happy to say to the commission, share that as freely as you want, because council will have seen it. And there will come a day, and it didn't come in December, but there will come a day where we're going to have everything living in one space. So that's where people will be able to go, public and commission members be able to go and see everything. We will still create some kind of Microsoft Teams. I know that's kind of in the works, and we'll figure out what lives there. But so anyway, so that's all sort of the mechanics of this. I hope that's clear. Are there any questions, further questions or comments on the report?
One small little quick thing. I'm sorry, I'm kind of like looking at this in real time. But also on page 2, there's a sentence that says the heat map above clearly shows that the city's low canopy neighborhoods correlate with. Just make sure, based on where that final map goes, to revise that as needed.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm a copy. I've done a lot of copy and proof editing, and one of the things at the end, because things like that just drive me crazy. That just happened because we've been editing it. But thank you. Yeah, I absolutely will go through and make sure. Anything else that we are now at? I'm sort of chipped into Mike's time, not too badly, but we should move ahead with that portion. With the corrections, the additions, and the input, and thank you again all for helping with this. With all of those in, I'm going to submit this to council close of business Friday. And that really is the earliest that I can do it is on Friday. I'm happy to send something out earlier in the day for final review and approval, or if the commission is comfortable with just approving this report with all of these corrections and emendations and all that, then I will submit it to council and obviously provide you a copy that I sent to council. It's just a matter of timing, since I'm actually traveling on Thursday, so I won't be back till late.
But we're going to, as far as I'm concerned, we're going to trust you and Paul to get it right.
Okay. So it's important for all the commission to have seen it and to approve of it. So I don't believe we need to take a vote on this. I don't think we have in the past. I think it's really for us to have all worked on it together. So
if anyone wants to see it again, just let us know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and
otherwise we'll keep moving.
Yeah, we'll just keep moving. And as I say, you will see the final version, but it probably will be at the same time that I send it out to council, as opposed to a day in advance, I guess is what I'm saying. So.
And Brian, if I can jump in, you said we've got to get this out, close of business Friday. Would it be welcome if, I'm able to provide some feedback through another Word document for the whole commission to review, and yay or nay? I'm just thinking about Jody's comment about getting a couple of these things slightly more punchy and really jumping out for those who have to skim their packets and not process and absorb everything. And in lieu of kind of going through a wordsmithing exercise when we don't have the time on the agenda, I'm just wondering if that's welcome, like if I can get that to this whole group, the whole commission, in the next day or so.
You certainly can do that. I mean, Paul and I will take that into consideration when we do a final version.
Yeah, if you want to take a stab at it tomorrow and send it back to Brian and I, and then we can then sort of proofread, that's great.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be happy to try. Some of it might fall on its face, some of it might be useful, but yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move to Arbor's report and well, you can see the agenda. I'm just going to turn it over to Mike. And I remember, Mike, there's time on the backside for you too. So even though we chewed into the front.
Should be very quick. Unfortunately, on the CIP and the operating budget, there is no update. We haven't heard anything hardly for the entire month of December. So it's been very quiet. So again, I believe there will be an update about points to provide input, but as of now, the next time to provide input will be January 12th, like we talked about at the Planning Commission public hearing.
So yeah, I did see that on the schedule. So I just want to be clear as to what we don't want to miss any opportunity to provide input. So, and Peggy, I know you've been thinking about this.
Yeah.
How,
I mean, generally, we have gone, and Jody, you can ask me, you can answer whether it's important or not, but generally we have gone and just given, a quick support for the request from the urban forestry. And I don't know if it's helpful or not, but we have appeared. It will be a joint meeting between, as I understand, between Planning Commission and City Council on January 13th at 5 o'clock.
Yes, it would be. I don't think it's going to result in what we want to hear, but it's always important to be in front of Planning Commission and City Council, just to let everyone know the Tree Commission is paying attention and needing help.
Yeah, one of the things, I think, Brian, I don't know if you and I talked about it, but I was thinking at one point, I guess we talked about this, that we should have sent the strategic plan report to the Planning Commission. They're the ones who are making most of the decisions on trees and land use, and not City Council. So I don't know if the Planning Commission has heard our pleas about connection between trees and health and our other issues and climate change. And not that I want to go before Planning Commission at this time and give them a big presentation, but I do wish we had sort of given more of a presentation, to be able to give more of a presentation to the Planning Commission about our issues.
And one of the things that they've only heard it through my reporting about the Tree Commission and what I bring to them from our meetings. But one of the things that I know I keep facing and keeps coming up is it's the setback issues, and
Yeah.
the fact that we are not providing enough setback to get utilities and canopy trees in. And time again, things come to us, and we're not following even our own green street plan, or whatever the name of that is. So it just needs to be hammered in as often as we can.
so my feeling on that is, and I agree with you, both of you entirely, but my feeling is, first of all, when we prepared that statement, we were submitting it to City Council, which was the appropriate thing to do, which was the city body that up to that point was going to be reviewing the strategic plan. That process obviously is in hiatus. I have a feeling from what I've heard that process is in hiatus. They're just going to carry over the current strategic plan for however long they need to. That's what I've heard through the grapevine. Now, I think that once we submitted it, and that can be repurposed in any format that we want in terms of getting it before other relevant bodies. For the Planning Commission, having just heard from Jody that perhaps the last thing they need is the full 12-page version, it might be possible to take that executive summary, make sure that it covers these points, and provide some shorter version to the Planning Commission. We can always say there's a longer version, but I think it's those points that Jody, you say need to be hammered home. And whether we do that with some kind of participation in the January 12th, so it's not just numbers, but it's also, here are the key action items for the Planning Commission. Here are the things on our minds. That's why we need money. That might be the opportunity to do it, but I think the caution would be just dropping a 12-page report on the Planning Commission.
Yes.
No, I agree. We don't want to drop that 12-page report, but I think we might, let's think about some key points that Jody pointed out, to at least educate them a little bit and let them know what our priorities are, even beyond the CIP. It might be just an opportunity within a short not a visual presentation we can't do. I guess we could send them something beforehand if it was short and sweet, but maybe you and I can talk about that, Brian.
Or another another option is during the open mic session, the issues before the public, or at the beginning of the meeting, anybody can come forward and say anything they, or make any kind of comment they want. Well, someone from the tree commission could come forward with copies of this plan, hit the highlights within 3 minutes, and pass out copies to the planning commissioners.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
I think that's a great approach. I nominate Peggy.
I knew you were going to do that.
Well, only because my attention is going to be focused next week on getting the presentation to council. But I'll work with you on that. I think that we can put something together. I think, and this is a good conversation, because I want to get clear that on January 12th, somebody from Tree Commission would be, in that public session, would be making a public statement. Because I know that has happened in the past.
January
Right?
13th, yeah.
I have a correction. Missy's listening in and has corrected me that the CIP was moved to February 9th at 6 p.m.
From January
For the
12th to
CIP?
February 9th.
Correct.
Oh, that gives us plenty of time. We can do that.
Okay.
So the CIP, talking about the CIP, Mike,
Yes.
Great.
February 9th, for the joint committee, joint meeting with Planning Commission and City Council?
It's the first hearing for the Planning Commission on the CIP.
Okay.
Yes, Missy just sent out the agenda a little while ago today, and in fact, I sent you all a link to what's on our agenda for next week, the Cherry Avenue Small Area Plan, in case you want to take a look at that. I just briefly looked through the table of contents. I didn't see a whole lot, if anything, about trees and landscaping, and I would think that might be an important thing that the Tree Commission would like to comment upon. So I sent the link to that to you all, and see, as Missy said, the CIP is not on our agenda for next week.
Okay.
Well,
Can
And
we-
Jody, this plan that you sent out, December 20th, it's 126 pages. I'm opening it now. When are you reviewing this?
Next, we're reviewing it next week. Is the meeting on Tuesday, or it seems to me, hold on one second, Paul. Our meeting next week is on Tuesday. So we're reviewing it next Tuesday at 5 o'clock.
Next Tuesday at 5. And is the public welcome to add comments to that?
Yes. In fact, it's a public hearing, as I recall from the agenda.
And if the Tree Commission has strong feelings about this, should we send a statement of some sort to the Planning Commission? Is that of interest?
Yes.
So this
The
is a
codes
perfect,
committee- The Codes Committee can do that. The Codes Committee can do that. The Education and Advocacy Committee can prepare something for the CIP.
Okay.
Sense?
I
Does that
think,
make sense?
I think that's a great division of labor. Now, Paul, if it's that lengthy a document, I mean, you could still draft some with
I'll just
maybe,
quickly go through it. I think the main points I have are just, coordination of utility poles and keeping them all on one side of the street. I mean, right now it's just a mess on Cherry. So if that's not covered, that's the thing that jumps out to me. But I'll look
and
through it.
you'll keep Tim and Jeff Pacelli in on that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No.
Great,
Codes
perfect, okay. And then the Codes Committee, that's right. And then any draft that you come up with, you'll circulate. So that's great. All right,
I just confirmed that it is a public hearing that includes city council. So it's a full public hearing.
So we could send a note to the Planning Commission and then make a comment during the meeting.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jody.
Sure.
excellent.
Is that next? I keep a list of things to do for Brian. So is that next Tuesday?
Yes.
Tuesday the 12th. Yeah, Tuesday the 12th. But I'm, you're keeping the list. Yeah, I'm not doing that. You're keeping the list for me. I get it.
Brian, you
Okay.
told me I had to do that.
Peggy is the keeper. The vice chair, his new role this year, is the keeper of the list of action items. So I can
Yeah.
move the meeting along. And I know Mike is keeping a list too. So Mike, but this is great. I mean, this is these are, I mean, this is why we have these meetings. These things come up and we brainstorm, and I think this is great. So Mike, we sort of jumped back into your report. Was there, beside this, anything else you've given us about CIP and budget stuff? I guess my question about that maybe is for Mike and Jody, but how far off into the future is this process pushed? Or there's obviously a deadline, right? There's a fiscal year deadline where all these budgets have to be set. Is that true, or do we don't know that?
Well, I certainly don't. I didn't know that it was pushed off from next week
Okay.
till February.
Okay.
So it's a moving target, Brian.
Okay, but we're
Yeah.
just keeping our eye on it. So the first step is February 9th. So that's
Yeah,
great.
I think we can expect a new timeline coming out shortly for
Okay.
the CIP process.
But we've got our eye on the ball, so
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. Okay, did you have anything you want to say about the tree planting, status of tree planting?
Yes, so the contract has been awarded. The contractor's going to plans to start putting trees in January 25th. But again, if you recall, we were planting 23 trees, and I guess I can only assume I am going to ask, but the bids came in much higher per tree, and so I would expect it would be an economy of scale thing where a contractor would come in and say, here's your price per tree for 23 trees versus planting, 140 trees or however many trees we can. So if you recall, last year we had trees installed for $350 a tree. This year, for our 23 trees, the lowest bid was $455 a tree. So if you recall, we had plans for 23 trees based on last year's prices. So I had to take money from funds for the forest, the donation account, to supplement to get 23 trees planted for this year.
So
So going forward for our request to, for CIP funding, now we should increase our ask by a certain percentage to account for $450 per tree.
Yes.
So just to be clear on that price, because that's a steep increase.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying?
I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah.
Okay, is there an explanation aside from the fact you said economies of scale? We're only is that part of it? How much is, like, are trees that much more expensive? I know that was a toilet paper shortage, but why are suddenly trees expensive?
It could be, yeah, I'm not sure, workloads with some of these companies that bid on this project, but we got a lot of competitive bids, and we got some new bidders that we had never seen before. But they're all right around, in the same ballpark.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And you're thinking this is going to be, and you and Paul are thinking this is going to be the base price going forward.
I think we should. It would be prudent to consider that.
Yeah, I usually say, you take $200 for a 2-inch caliber tree times 2, for install, 400, so 450. If you're getting a decent tree and you're putting mulch in and all that, that's not unheard of for a number. It's not great, but in the past, you have 5 times as many trees. I could imagine someone getting a little deal and could cut the price down a little bit, but.
I heard something about, is it the same thing as the Christmas trees and how expensive they were? And it's a ripple effect of the fact that 10 years ago we had a recession and nobody planted anything because we weren't building anything. And it takes about 10 years for trees to get to a certain height for Christmas trees or for planting.
It's that, but it's also development, like the land that people have suddenly had lots of time to think about their landscapes and planting trees. And so I'm going to a lot of nurseries and just seeing everything sold out. Things are just off the shelf. So the landscape business has been booming. So I think that plays into it as well.
So it is like grocery store shortages. I was sort of making light of it, but it seems that the pandemic is affecting things. So Mike, you're informing or sort of just bringing us in the loop that 23 trees obviously will be adjusted for the budget that we have.
No, like I said, I was able to supplement. I borrowed from funds for the forest to
Okay.
supplement that, because I really wanted to get at least 23 trees, at least what.
Gotcha.
And Mike,
Okay.
remind us, what is the Funds of the Tree Forest and how much money is in that account?
Well, there's none now, but it's a donation account. So if somebody calls and they want to donate a memorial tree, it's something Tim would, he would put money in that account and put it aside until he had enough money to do something, do a project with it. And he would, in the CIP for tree planting, he would, just include their tree in the park in the planting project. So that's how it was used in the past.
Okay, so this implicates the report we just looked at simply because I referenced these 23 trees as taking money from the operating budget. So to show that we had planted trees, would it be helpful to say operating budget and donations from the public? And the only reason why I say that is there's just a slight, I don't want to say shaming effect, but in order to plant trees, we've had to raise money. I mean, it's not true now that those 23 trees are planted just from the operating budget.
Yeah, you can include it.
Can I just include, I mean, I don't think it hurts to say we took money from the operating budget and some public donations in order to be able to plant some trees.
I think that's very important to add. I mean,
Yep.
I think this still gets to the point of having to beg every year for CIP to plant trees should be happening in the general fund and not being a request every year that can be sort of nickel and dimed and say, well, maybe this year we're not going to plant trees. Maybe we don't. Like it it should be something that is, the city should say you should care about it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a begging every year for, would you please plant 100 trees? Otherwise, no trees get planted without this, unless we're taking from public donations to plant trees, which is an embarrassment.
And I mean, I think the important thing is, that's why I wrote it that way. And the important thing was to show the chronology of funding and to say we were allocated money, but regrettably and understandably because of the pandemic. I mean, I want to make clear that we're not complaining that we didn't get that money. Nobody got that money in the budget. But so that's a separate issue. But this issue where we're showing that we are actually planting trees because we took money from elsewhere, and I will add in that including public donations. I think it's important to acknowledge that. So I'm glad we had this conversation so I can update the report to say that. Was there anything else? That's all good to know, Mike. Anything else you wanted to say about either tree planting or any other items that are not on that for the report?
No, that's all I have.
Great.
One thing I wanted to ask,
Sure.
Yes,
Brian,
Peggy.
just
Yeah.
since we'll be begging Planning Commission and City Council for money, I'm a little confused between what Mike wrote for the CIP and what we have in our City Council report about the number of ash trees. And maybe it's just something we have to, because we say 270 and then Mike has sort of different numbers in the CIP request. We might get that straightened out.
Oh, yes.
Are you revising your CIP, or is that it now?
That's what went forward.
Okay.
So no, there won't be any more revising that. So yeah, I picked that number off the top of my head from about approximately 100 trees in the inventory, and then I just remembered, the 170 in addition to the 170 that are at disc golf. So I mean that's why I said 270 trees inventoried. It's kind of what we had to go on. There will be others. I mean.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to, clarify that. So if we say 270 in our report, that's approximately right.
That's correct. Yeah, it's going to be at least, 270. So.
Oh, and also,
I mean, what is? Excuse me. What does it say? I don't have it up. But what does it say in the CIP? What's the number there?
the CIP, it's a little bit. It mentions different numbers. It never says 270. Sometimes I can't remember exactly, 107, and then you talk about the 170 and the disc golf. But one thing I want to ask Mike, obviously $50,000 is not going to be enough to take down 270 trees, but that's all that's asked for the next 5 years. So how is that going to work?
I mean, we can, I'd like to see how far we can get with $50,000, and then we can reevaluate you know, how much we need and what will be priority, I guess.
Yeah, I would just, because I would not think $50,000 is going to cover 270 trees that might have to come down.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. Is this,
So I guess
ahead, Paul.
anyway, in the report, I guess we can keep it approximately 270 ash
well,
trees.
I mean, if there's a difference in numbers, if you think it's going to be at least that, I mean, I'm happy to even say approximately 300. I mean, even just a round number. I don't.
That's fine. I think that's why I put it that way, is currently 270 inventoried will need to be removed.
Okay, I'm happy to leave it at 270 if it says currently inventoried. All right, that's fine. All right, again, all good points. Thank you for
Oh, you're on mute.
contributions.
Regarding the CIP request, we should now have a $90,000 CIP request to fund 200 trees at $450. So
From 75 to 90.
I think it's already gone in though, Paul. I mean, it's gone in at 75,000, hasn't it, Mike?
yeah, I know. I want to make sure for the future we're always putting our bids in for 990 now.
And actually, Mike has $100,000 for the years after that.
Okay,
Right.
well, good.
Yeah.
So Mike will adjust that going forward by a certain percentage. So we have reached the 6:53. We're a little bit behind, but I noticed that when Mike signed in, he appeared as a co-host. I don't know if that means he can see public comments or if Anson can see public comments, and if anybody joining us in the public wants to make a comment during the public comment period. Either of you, Anson, you're both on mute, so I see shaking of heads. I just want to make
Yeah. It's all
quiet.
pretty
Quiet this month.
Yeah. I did shoot everybody a cool email. I was looking at the map builder tool. I've been looking for this data for a while. If you check I'm going to share my screen real quick because this is like.
Okay, just be conscious of, yeah, okay, great.
This data is really beautiful. That's the canopy that you're looking at right there. And there's the urban heat island. And man, I don't know that you're going to get a more like there's Charlottesville. There's, this is the tree canopy from 2011, right? Gives you a sense of where the trees are. These are the heat islands from 2019 at reasonably high resolution for the entire United States. I mean, this is not something.
Maybe I'll try to get those in the report too. We'll see, Anson.
I was just gonna say, like, this is kind of I'm amazed at how like binary this looks. Like, you take away the trees, there is your heat island. Like, you don't need any.
Can we put neighborhood name of a couple of the neighborhood names or the three that are mentioned in the
Sure.
report on that map?
Let me see what I can come up with. I mean, I think if you just put the labels on there, you can kind of see what's going on. I mean, there's 10th and Page. Again, I don't know what, I don't know that being hyper accurate is going to be hyper helpful, but it's like the pictures and the words are right there. It's pretty telling.
I have a file kind of set up with already have the names in it that I could sort of drop that into, so I can mess with that.
All right. I mean, that was just I was playing around. I was trying to calculate the area for the number of for the canopy that was missing. 320 acres. I was trying to get the numbers for that, and stumbled onto that map, which is kind of helpful.
That's great looking stuff. I'm going to leave the graphical and data wizardry to Paul and Anson. And just be aware that I'm going to be turning to this full bore on Friday morning. So this couple days, and then I'm going to have to get this out to council. We had no public comments, and we are approaching the end of our allotted time. We have 4 minutes left. We're going to close on time, adjourn on time. Are there any other items or announcements? Anything that we didn't cover? Any individual tree member? Something you want to shout out? This is your 4 minutes of fame or whatever. We covered a lot tonight, folks, I think. If nothing, I always like to let people go early.
Yeah, the Equity Atlas at Charlotte at UVA is really excited. They've been duplicating tree data from Charlottesville City. Michelle Claiborne really likes your work, so that's useful, possibly.
Mark Rylander did share, I think just with me and Peggy, or maybe me and Paul, but looks like UVA updated its website for all of the memorial trees planted. At least it looks different from the one I remember from a few years ago. So it's kind of cool. Those of you who aren't familiar with that program, there's a lot of interesting trees on grounds planted in memory or honor of people. So I don't know, if you need to take your mind off what's going on in the world, perhaps you can go over there, look at trees. Well, I am going to adjourn the meeting if we don't have anything else. I'm going to thank everybody for their time, and we'll just keep plugging along.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.